Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. When your Filipina speaks, listen to her. Becoming a good listener can make your marriage the best it can be. And not being a good listener can make the Filipina you pursue to marry feel unimportant and like she made a mistake. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea for help to attract and to have a good relationship with a Filipina. Share these videos to other men so they can find love beyond the sea. Comments, of course, are welcome anytime. How to communicate with your Filipino wife is a live stream I will link for you, and this topic is a viewer request that covers things about how not to communicate with a Filipina, and one of them is by just not listening. You can communicate by not listening intentionally or by not listening because you are so immersed in something else or disinterested in what someone else is saying. Either way, it hurts a relationship. For a marriage to be successful, a husband and his Filipino wife must be doing what is best for each other, and that includes listening to each other. There have been times I have asked my wife to tell me what I just said to her to see if she was paying attention, and she has told me if she is involved with something to first ask her if she is listening. And that's good to know, because when she is concentrating on something she is reading on her phone, for example, it is almost impossible to get her attention. She says the magic words are, "Hun, are you listening?" There have been times when both of us have tried to keep our hands off of our phones while we are at the dinner table, and that's a good time to chat a little, but all too easy to get caught up in something on your phone, so we try to keep those away. I will link a good article for you that touches on 4 things that happen when you don't listen to your wife, Filipina or otherwise. His name is Mark Merrill, and here's what he says. Number 1, wives become distant when their husbands don't listen to them. Wives become distant. Sharing her thoughts and feelings is a moment of vulnerability for a woman. So when her husband doesn't give his full attention, she is left feeling rejected and instinctively pulls back to avoid more rejection. Rather than letting your wife draw herself back like this, he says, I encourage you to keep her close at all costs. Be observant enough to notice when she starts to recoil so that you can pull her into your arms, look into her eyes, and let her know that you are always there to listen to her. I think it takes some discipline to train yourself to look up at your wife when she has something to say. It is easy to assume that since you are married to each other that it's okay to not always pay attention, but really your Filipino wife is the most important person in your life, I hope. So what is on her mind should be worth setting down what you're reading or turning down the volume on the television so she can be focused on. Number 2, he says, when a husband doesn't listen to his wife, wives become indifferent. So we go from distant to indifferent. Another way that wives handle a lack of attention from their husbands is by becoming indifferent. When your wife consistently feels like she isn't being heard, she will stop expecting anything at all from you. This is a very dangerous direction to be headed in with your spouse because of the way indifference quickly turns into emotional detachment. My comments now, this makes sense. Think how you would feel if you had something exciting to share with her and you frequently have to bug her to listen to you. You'll likely get the impression what you have to say isn't as important as whatever she is immersed with at the moment. I'm not an ace in this either, but I do think it's important to consider the vibe it sends off when either one of you is slow to respond to attention that is wanted by the other. A third thing that can happen to Mark Merrill when a husband does not listen to his wife is the wives can lose their desire. So it seems to be getting worse here. Wives become distant, wives become indifferent. And number 3, he says wives lose their desire. Once your wife becomes indifferent, a loss of desire is soon to follow. Lowering her expectations regarding her conversations with you leads to lowering her expectations regarding other aspects of your relationship. Unfortunately, this can cause a lack of physical desire in your relationship too. In my response, I think it's fair to say that desire or lack of desire is affected by other parts of the relationship, such as communication. If she feels neglected or unimportant enough to warrant her husband's attention, it will make it more difficult for her to respond to him where he often wants it the most. I really like this guy's comments, and his next one, number 4, should get any man's attention. So now it gets even more serious. He says when a husband doesn't listen to his wife. Number 4, wives move their focus to other relationships. The final way, he says, wives react when their husbands don't listen is by shifting their focus onto other relationships in their lives. When they aren't receiving affirmation from you, they will turn to others to fill that need. This may mean they share more of what's going on in their life with girlfriends instead of you. This may mean your wife spends all her time in the evening talking to the kids instead of talking with you. Or this may mean she looks for reasons to stay late at work, spending time with coworkers who listen instead of trying to come home early to see you. That's the end of his comments. Most of us are not good listeners by and large. And by the way, not only that, but she could find other men besides you at work that start taking an interest in her, that start listening to her, and that's definitely something you don't want. So most of us are not good listeners by and large. I think it's a developed skill. I need to work at paying attention to my wife's words and her body language. I need to be mindful of how often she tries to tell me something. I need to remember what she tells me as easily as I remember, statistics of my favorite team or what happened at work. In fact, the Bible tells us to be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath or anger. So very first thing, swift to hear. Focused listening will not only help me to understand my Filipina wife, but can help keep my mind free from unnecessary emotions and thinking about what I may be going to say next. So I will continue another time with more ways to not communicate with your Filipina wife, your love beyond the sea. Now, I want to remind you to please follow me on Twitter, like the Facebook page. That's something else I'm starting. So we will have more in this upcoming series on how not to communicate with your Filipina.